All right. Well, I have 2 minutes after the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining this webinar where we will introduce Credential Engine's new Issuer Identity Registry. My name is Jared Diener. I am Director of Accounts and Publishing at Credential Engine, and I'll get us started here with a kind of a brief overview, and then I will turn it over to some of our amazing colleagues to discuss the IIR further. Ariel, could you advance to the next slide, please? So a little bit here about Credential Engine, who we are and what we do. Credential Engine is a nonprofit whose mission is to map the credential landscape with clear and consistent information that fuels the creation of resources that empower people to find the pathways that are best for them. And we accomplish this mission through building a common infrastructure and language and through collaboration and empowerment. Next slide, please. So quick introduction here to Credential Engine's open technologies. It starts with the Credential Transparency Description Language, the CTDL, and this is the comprehensive open standard for structured, open, linked, interoperable, and durable data in learn and work ecosystems. And we use this SOLID acronym to describe the language in that context. CTDL enables data to be connected, discovered, exchanged, reused, and scaled across systems. Then it goes to the Credential Registry. This is a cloud-based open registry that collects CTDL solid data and that supports discovery, transparency, interoperability, and reuse across learn and work ecosystems. We see CTDL registry data being used in many different applications, things like training explorers, career navigators, LERs, much, much more, that deliver critical information to the people who need it most. And then there's the Issuer Identity Registry, which we are here to talk about today. The Issuer Identity Registry is Credential Engine's trust infrastructure for verifying and making transparent the identities of credential issuers, making it easier for verifiers and other systems to discover and trust them across different platforms. And we'll learn a lot more about this. Next slide. So this is our agenda for today. I'm giving our quick welcome and introductions, and then I will turn it over to my colleague Jeannie Kitchens, our Chief Technology Services Officer, who will give us some background to the IIR and then show us how it works. Then I will be back with you after that to talk about how to get started with the IIR. And then I'll turn it over to Deb Eberhardt, Chief Strategy Officer at Credential Engine, who will discuss adoption and engagement. And then we will close with some Q&A time. Just a note here that this webinar is being recorded and transcribed, and because of that, we're not allowing additional AI note-taking tools in the webinar. We will send all the meeting materials and a summary with all the participants who registered for the webinar shortly after we close, so please be on the lookout for that. With that, Jeannie, I'll turn it over to you for some background.
All right. Thank you, Jared. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are thrilled to have all of you with us to talk about trust with verifiable credentials. And we can go ahead and advance the slide, Ariel. You're going to hear me and my colleagues at Credential Engine use the word digital verifiable credentials a lot and in this webinar, but we may also think of these as LERs as well. So we're talking about the same thing, but the important aspect that we want to talk about today is because of modern data standards that enable these verifiable credentials. So that's why we're using those words. And we can go ahead, Ariel. So the Issuer Identity Registry, or IIR, we have a new acronym that we're talking about today, is grounded in research. And so for those who are not aware or have not seen the research that we have done with our partners at the Digital Credentials Consortium, We did a year-long project. It concluded back in June of 2025, and we co-authored a research report and a governance framework. And what we have done here at Credential Engine is put both into action. We have literally launched an issuer identity registry and a public governance framework, both grounded completely in the research that we did with our partners at DCC. And I hope we have some of those partners on the webinar with us today who may be able to answer any kind of deep questions folks have about this type of research that we did. They're more than happy to answer questions. And we can go ahead, Ariel, and go to the next slide. We probably also have with us today people who were part of both advisory groups. We had an advisory group for the research project and an advisory group for the governance and integration of the registry that we have launched. And thanks to all of you who help with that work. It's so essential. And so here's where we are today. We didn't just invent this without doing the homework. So we completed our advisory groups, we collected a lot of use cases, we developed the governance framework, and it's now public information. Throughout this webinar, we'll be sharing links in the chat. And as Jared mentioned, of course, we'll send everything after the webinar as well. We have integrated this issuer identity registry with Credential Engine's infrastructure, both the Credential registry and our accounts and publishing system. We have published guidance that is publicly available, and we have completed all the technical aspects of how we integrated and how people can utilize the integration of the IIR into our systems. And we officially launched on May 27th. So we can go ahead and share those links. And thanks again to everyone who participated. So what is key here is that we are seeing more and more issuance of LERs, or digital verifiable credentials. And it is essential that across ecosystems, learn, work, government ecosystems, that we are adding value and making sure that everyone is benefiting from the issuance of these credentials. And so we're going to be focused on the role of the Issuer Identity Registry in that, and building trust in these ecosystems, and why we need to do that. And, some of this is, I'm sure, quite obvious to everyone who has joined this webinar today, but, it is essential that the issuers of these digital verifiable credentials have the visibility, that they are building credibility and trust. We know that there is fraud out there, that there are organizations that do not exist. There are people making claims that are not true. So we need to make sure that issuers are credible and trustworthy. The holders of credentials, the people that earn them, we need to make sure that they can control those credentials, they can share those credentials when they want to share them, and that they're getting the recognition and the value that they deserve. We need to make sure that employers are using faster and reliable ways to do verification. Many employers are using the phone or paying sums of dollars for verifiers to find out if people are making legitimate claims and if organizations really exist. And of course, we need all the tools, platforms, and government infrastructure supporting this trust in our ecosystem. So the Issuer Identity Registry provides a standardized way to verify credential issuers, and that's why we call it an Issuer Identity Registry. It's for verifying the identity of credential issuers, and we want to be able to make sure that when these credentials are issued, there's a great deal of trust and confidence in that. And go ahead, Ariel. And by the way, if you have questions along the way, you should see a Q&A icon on your screen, and feel free to drop questions in there at any time. I see it at the bottom of my screen. If you can't, well, I guess if you can't find it, raise your hand. I hope you can raise your hand and then we can make sure you can ask questions. So again, verifiable credentials, LERs. We believe that everyone needs to have these digital verifiable credentials for their achievements that they control. And that to do that, it is necessary to use modern, updated specifications that follow World Wide Web Consortium or W3C verifiable credential specification. And a couple examples are the One Ed Tech Open Badges and One Ed Tech CLR specifications. And these are the more current versions of those specifications. It's important to use the current versions that they support this trust framework that we're talking about. And Ariel, you can go ahead. So we know that learners should have control of their credentials, and we know that employers want better pipelines for their talent. They need to trust those pipelines, and everybody needs to understand how we can build trust in these communities. So I think when Deb talks about this a little later in the webinar, we can talk about how everyone can adopt these technologies to really get momentum going and help everyone involved. So we need to be able, we know that with verifiable credentials, people can prove their skills. And but we need to make sure that the issuer of those credentials, that we have trust in that they are legitimate. And we know that very often verification checks are very slow and costly, and they also may be risking the privacy of the person. So what we want to do is have the automatic programmatic way that follows data standards to get this done. Go ahead, Ariel. So that's the role of issuer identity registries. Credential Engine has launched one. There will likely be many issuer identity registries that issuers can join and register their identities in. And I want to point out that, I'm using the word verifier a lot too. And by verifiers, we mean who are the organizations or the people who want to make sure that a credential, when it's issued, was actually issued to the person, and that the organization that issued that credential is legitimate, is substantiated. So certainly employers want to do that. And providers, meaning education and training entities, they can start accepting credentials as well to help get people into programs and do things like get credit for prior learning. And governments, and there are many use cases for government, as an employer, as a provider, and as things like issuing occupational licenses and other use cases as well. So what we want to do is confirm that the organization claiming to issue a credential is legitimate. That's what the identity registry does. And we have to build that trust in intentionally. We have to follow the data standards, and we also have to have the communications part of it to convey the value and benefit to everyone involved. And in a way here that is cryptographically secure and privacy preserving. So let's look at how it works. And if we're getting any questions in the Q&A, let me know if we should pause and answer them. So go ahead, Ariel, let's look at how it works. So as we've established, they're literally, we're calling it an issue identity registry because it's really is about the leg of the journey of substantiating the identity of issuers. And this is really essential part of trusted verifiable credential ecosystems. So how they work, and a trusted organization maintains a current list of these identities and follows transparent governance policies. Now, there may be registries out there that anyone can join and put their identifiers in, but without governance, that may be creating more friction, possibly unintentionally. So we are strongly recommending that these issuer registries have transparent public governance policies and follow standards. These registries have no link back to the person who was issued the credentials. So we want to make sure we have that privacy protection. And in our registry and in our research paper with Digital Credentials Consortium, we are using what is called a decentralized identifier. And this is a W3C specification that is widely used. And these identifiers are used as part of those modern specifications that I mentioned earlier. And the entries are digitally signed. So the difference between the credential registry and the issuer identity registry is important. The purpose of this identity registry is to provide cryptographic signature to actually verify the identity. And verifiers can use open APIs to verify issuers and see how the registry is governed. We can go ahead. So a credential engine, how we want to think about this is a foundation of trust. We have governance, we have organization plus decentralized identifier or DID verifications, a two kind of part process, and open and transparent data. And that is the Credential Transparency Description Language or CTDL plus the IIR. So we're combining that data to add more trust in ecosystems. Go ahead, Ariel. And here's a picture. This picture is in the research paper. It's also on a web page that provides more background on the role of issuer identity registries that you can look at. But this is how it works in terms of issuing these verifiable credentials. So an organization, issues a person, in this case, it's Olivia, a digital verifiable credential, and Olivia has control over that credential. She can put it in her wallet or some kind of an application for holding and sharing those credentials. She shares it with an employer as part of a job application process, and that employer can, using a verifier application, can also check an issuer identity registry to confirm that that issuer's identity is verifiable. So altogether, what this is doing is providing cryptographic proof plus the issuer identity registry to confirm authenticity. So that issuer identity registry is kind of this last leg here, so to speak, of this triangulation of trust. We can go ahead. And this is a screenshot of like a little sample of code. And don't worry, we're not expecting everybody to understand what you're seeing here on the left side of the screen, but the key point is that there is a part of these modern specifications where the proof is for the issuer identity, and that is the DID. And so this is showing where that literally is in the data. And it is that DID of the issuer that is used for verifying that last leg of the journey. So this is from a verifiable credential. So I've mentioned the governance framework, and we definitely need to share that link with everyone. The governance framework is very robust. This is a table of contents of that governance framework. So you can see that it covers at least all of the things that we believe to be important to provide transparency and to show that you can trust the credential engine issuer identity registry. I want to point out that part of that governance framework also includes convening an ongoing advisory group for this body of work. And at the end of the webinar, we'll also be sharing a link for those of you who want to go ahead and get an early sign up to join that group. But we can see here that this governance framework is defining, the participation, verification, privacy, security, operational requirements, everything about it. It establishes transparent public information and oversight, and that's going to be part of the role of our advisory group. And we're making sure that it's aligning with open standards and cryptographic models that are commonly used in this space. So we welcome everyone to explore that document, and again, know that, we're taking this very seriously in terms of making sure that we have clear, transparent governance along with the tech. And um, so I mentioned that it's completely integrated with Credential Engine's technology stacks. The Credential Registry still is the Credential Registry. It is not the Issuer Identity Registry. There are two different things, but they are complementary things. And the key points between the two are that the role of the Credential Registry is solid data, structured, linked, open data. And that is a specific kind of data format. And for us, it's JSON LD. And it uses a CTID as globally unique identifiers for that data in the registry. The Issuer Identity Registry uses a different data format. Both of them are, established specifications. But for the IIR, it's the thing called a JSON Web Token, JWT, and it's a cryptographic trust infrastructure. And the data in the Issuer Identity Registry includes the CTID. So you're getting two for one. You're going to make sure that issuer identity is legitimate, and you're going to be able to get that CTID. So if you're getting data from the Issuer Identity Registry, you could also consume data from the Credential Registry and get more details about the credentials offered by organizations. So the important thing to know is this is not some standalone thing. It's literally integrated in our work and our systems, and it's all about trusted, transparent, and verifiable ecosystems. And I'm going to pass it over to Jared to get started. Again, if we're seeing any questions in the Q&A that we should address, we can always pause and do that, and we welcome everyone to ask questions.
Thank you, Jeannie. Yeah, so I'm going to discuss the registration process, how to get started with the IIR, kind of how everything works. So as Jeannie mentioned a few moments ago, the IIR is integrated into Credential Engine's platform, and it uses the Credential Engine account system as the first step or stage one in the registration process. So this is the first place you would go to register your organization. If you have an existing account that already exists, there are additional fields that you can go in and enter new information that's for the purposes of IIR registration. After your information has been submitted in the account system, we do require that you make sure that your organization is published to the Credential Registry. If you're a new organization, then you would need to take that step. If you're an existing organization, just make sure that that organization data is published to the registry as part of stage one in the process. All right, after that information has been submitted and the organization has been published, we move to stage two. There is a one-time registration fee of $140 per credential issuer. And this covers the full verification process, reviewing the organizational identity, validating the decentralized identifier. And we do ask that the fees are submitted before the registration can take place. So after stage two, we move to the verification step. And at this stage, the IIR service team will verify the information that has been submitted by the organization against publicly available sources and authoritative registries. This verification will confirm that the organization is a legally recognized identity, that it demonstrably issues educational or training credentials. It'll also confirm the organization's identifiers through business registries. And it will also confirm that the account users or contact persons are authorized to represent the organization in credential issuance matters. Once the verification has been completed and the organization has been approved to join the IIR, we move to stage 4, the DID submission. So you'll submit your decentralized identifier and assigned payload as part of this process. This is a technical step. So if you're moving through the registration process and you are not a technical person, this is where you would want to involve a developer or some technical person on your staff to handle this process. Once that is all complete, the organization will be registered in the IIR, and Credential Engine will publish a registration action for the organization to the Credential Registry, and we'll have a look at that registration action here in a few moments. If you're the primary account user who is navigating through this process, you'll receive notifications at every stage of the process. So we will make sure that you're kept up to date throughout as you run through this process. And I'd also like to mention that state agencies, systems, or authoritative bodies may apply for the IIR as trusted third parties. Trusted third parties may submit organization records in bulk on behalf of issuers that they oversee or that are under their jurisdiction. So if your organization is intending to apply as a trusted third party to the IIR, then we encourage you to go ahead and reach out to Credential Engine as you're starting the registration process. Next slide, please. So this slide presents the guidance and technical resources that Credential Engine has provided that will help you navigate the different parts of the IIR process. So the guidance site page that you see on the left of your screen includes detailed step-by-step instructions on the application and registration process. So what we just kind of covered a moment ago. So this is where you would go when you want to begin the IIR application process. The Credential Engine technical site, which you see on the right, includes the technical specifications for the IIR, as well as detailed technical information on issuer DID registration and validation. So whomever on your team will be submitting DIDs will definitely want to visit this site. And then there's also information on the technical site for verifiers with instructions, as well as information on API endpoints. Next slide. So a few words here on the DID verification and registration. So when an issuer is ready to register their DID, they would submit it through the IIR interface. From there, the IIR resolves the identifier and it kicks off a verification process. We generate a unique cryptographic challenge and send it back to the issuer. They sign it using their private key and return it to us, and we verify that signature to confirm they actually control the identifier they're claiming. Important thing to note here is that private keys never leave the issuer's hands. They're never transmitted to or stored by Credential Engine. Next slide. Once an issuer is registered in the IIR, verifiers then have a reliable way to look them up. The IIR exposes endpoints that return trusted issuer information in a machine-readable format. Every response is cryptographically signed by Credential Engine, so verifiers know the information is authentic and hasn't been tampered with. And because the signatures can be validated independently, verifiers don't necessarily have to take our word for it. Next slide. And last word for me here is about the quality assurance action, the QA action that Credential Engine will publish to the Credential Registry for every organization that is registered in the IIR. This registration action, which is asserted by Credential Engine for organizations, will make information about IIR registrations publicly available, searchable, and findable. Anyone can use our Credential Finder app, that's what you're seeing here on the screen, to find this information. So again, publicly available. The raw data about the registration action can also be consumed by systems and tools, and you can see that on the screen here on the right. With that, I will turn it over to Deb Everhart to talk about adoption and engagement.
Hey, thanks everyone. And thank you for joining us today. If you're here in the webinar, you're watching the recording. If you're here, it's probably because you are a legitimate organization that issues credentials, or you work with those who are. And it's important for you to be able to differentiate your organization from those that are fraudulent or someone who may just be using an AI tool to issue credentials and you don't even know who that party is. So this is a relatively small and easy but important step in creating that value chain of how these different technologies work together. So if you're using OB3 or CLR2, then you're already using contemporary technologies because both of those one ed tech standards meet the W3C verifiable credential specifications. And this is that additional piece of data that when you think about verifiers, you should be thinking about not just parties or organizations that are verifiers, but also the technologies that they're using to automate these processes and using AI checks to see if this issuer is who they say they are. One of the things about the work that we've done that makes me really excited and proud is that it's this great combination of the technologies that are available now and the human processes that Credential Engine has applied through this governance framework to both humanly evaluate this organization is who they say they are, and to attach that technical verification piece. But this is a lot of us talking about it. It's actually more important to hear from our partners who are planning to implement this technology. And so I will turn it over to our partners.
So I think, Deb, that Jeff Bradford with State of North Dakota and Aaron McCarley with the state of Arkansas are both on and could unmute and share a little bit about the importance of trust. Hi, Jeff.
And I see Jamie
Hello,
here too.
I'm
Oh,
Jeff,
good.
working with North Dakota, and yeah, we're now that it's live, we're going to be implementing it into our wallet. We have a verification drill in, which this will make a nice addition to. Yeah, setting this up really wasn't that big of a deal. Sneha and team were great to work with. And yeah, we're going to be using DidWeb, but the one thing to mention too is that it does support key recycling as well too. So if you're using DidKey, it makes it easy to see that history and you don't lose that over time. So, anyways, yeah, we're happy to be started with this, and that's all I got. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
So worth noting, Jeff, maybe you want to elaborate on this a little. You're doing this on behalf of the higher ed institutions in the
Correct.
state, right?
Yep. So we're with the state IT department, and then yes, we're doing this on behalf of all of this higher ed institutions. We'll be onboarding our first one here in another week, and hopefully several more of the community colleges to follow.
That's great. And so we encourage that kind of collaborative effort, where a state agency can take the technical steps as well as the other process steps and facilitate those. None of these steps are hard, but I think it does help if someone, a state leader like you, Jeff, can actually facilitate that. So thank you.
Mhm.
And Erin and Jamie are representing that state approach as well, right?
Good morning. We are. Jamie LaFave and I support the development team for Arkansas Launch, which is our state's talent ecosystem. And in our development right now, the Credential Registry is already a central part of our talent ecosystem as our canonical or authoritative source for all of our skills and credential data in the state. And so at maturity, we'll pull from the registry all of our linked and open credential and skills data. So the issuer registry, as we get ready, we're in development right now using the DCC wallet in our testing. We'll be implementing the issuer registry just kind of as a natural extension for our credential providers in the state to ensure trust. And our our boss, Chief Data Officer Robert Magoo, says that it's trust, not technology, that is the primary constraint right now in developing talent marketplaces. So an example in Arkansas of how we see this working is that the state will be issuing by proxy credentials using our state longitudinal data system, for example, degree or certificate data on behalf of higher education institutions. And so Jared mentioned earlier that trusted third parties, state governments can have an issuer identity as a trusted third party. There may also be scenarios where an institution of higher ed issues their own digital credential, for example, a parchment badge or an OB3 for a degree, and then it would have that institution's issuer identity. So it's establishing that chain of trust and provenance throughout the whole process. And just before getting on this call, I was doing some testing with our user wallet and issued myself a badge for landscaping because I can do yard work. And it did not have a known issuer identification. And so our launch wallet rejected it. So I think right there, even though that was not from Credential Engine's issuer registry, right there shows the safeguards that our wallets and our talent marketplaces can have to ensure trust and ensure the brand, to bring employers on and education learning providers thinking about prior learning credit, transferability, admissions, to establish that trust. So we're really excited about this development, and it's coming just in time for our marketplace. Thanks.
Thanks, Erin and Jamie and Jeff. I'm going to say just a couple more words about talent marketplaces. So for those of you who haven't seen it, there's a great deal of federal funding and backing in general coming out now for states to develop talent marketplaces. And what that means, it has basically three components. It has a credential registry, which is really, as Erin was saying, a credential and skills and pathways and quality assurance indicators are all in that registry. And the LERs, which are the digital credentials that are issued to people, and skills-based hiring and career pathways is the three parts of these talent marketplaces. And those things obviously don't operate in isolation. They need to have trustworthy data infrastructure that runs through all of them. And so Erin was just doing a great job of describing that chain of trust that they have operational already in Arkansas. A number of other states do too. But this is one more key piece of those talent marketplaces. Because if you imagine, millions of dollars of investments going into setting up these components at the state level or the regional level or the metropolitan level, and then not having contemporary technologies so that it all works reliably and so that it can be a trusted ecosystem. So we're really proud to be supporting those talent marketplaces at the state level as well as regional and other implementations. And this is just one part of that. So on the slide that's been up while we've been talking, there are specific links that we shared. This deck will be shared. And like we've been saying, It's not very complicated, but it's really important. So thank you for listening today. And I see one question in the Q&A.
See a couple, did a new question come in? I answered a couple of questions. I hope
Okay.
everybody can see the questions and the answers.
Oh, it's a comment from Daryl O'Donnell. If there's anyone who can't see it, I'll just read it. Daryl's comment is, a state entity that is leaning in is a huge help on the business and governance side. It sends a signal for educational institutions that the IIR is a solid and natural choice. So kudos to the state leaders that have leaned in. And thank
Thank you, Daryl.
But just to be clear, this is not just for state implementations. Any individual institution or system of institutions, as well as other types of credential providers like certification providers or licensing bodies, can all be included. We need really everyone possible to be included in this registry so that the verifications just become a normal part of how these talent ecosystems work.
Thank you for that, Deb. It's important to reinforce that we've had these state examples here, but we're not, this isn't only for state level issuance, whether you're a college, whether you're a occupational licensing body, a certification issuer, that does the assessments, anyone who is issuing credentials to people that need to be verifiable and digital. Should be participating in these ecosystems, and the Issuer Identity Registry is available now. So there are concrete things that everyone can do to actively participate in these ecosystems. And part of that is building off of what Erin said. The key word is trust here. I don't know how many times I've used it in this webinar, but I sound like a broken record. Sorry about that. But it is the reason. It's why we're here. It's why we're building this tech that is essential. So we also all need to communicate about this, share the information, develop the messages and the value statements and be able to talk about this in our conversations and then participate. So if you're issuing credentials, put your data in the credential registry and join the IIR. If you're on the verification side and you need to verify these credentials, start using our Issuer Identity Registry and other issuer identity registries that may be out there. One of the questions that came up was, are we talking about only one registry? Well, we're talking about the registry that Credential Engine has launched and we're now responsible for, and we're going to make sure that it's trusted through a robust governance framework. But many other organizations could have these registries as well for different reasons and different types of credentials. So we're talking about the kinds of credentials that you issue to people for their achievements, but there are other types of credentials as well. Deb, any other comments on just like how to get actively involved as, so when we conclude this webinar, we can make sure that everyone who participates can actively participate in these ecosystems.
Yeah, I think we've included everything in the slides and we will include in the follow-up resources. A lot of people talk about trust. We have provided technical infrastructure so that we can help you enable trust. And I think that's a wrap.
Deb, before we wrap, can we just put in a little plug for what's on the bottom right of the slide here, which is our IIR advisory group. Devin added a link to the chat. This is a group we're asking for participants who are interested, involved, want to know more about issuer identity registries to help provide support and feedback as we move along. This group would meet quarterly as we discuss the ongoing development of the IIR. So please do consider becoming part of this group and getting involved more and giving us your insights and expertise. We would really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. Good call for explicitly noting that. everything we do at Credential Engine is open and transparent, and that is precisely the purpose of this advisory group.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
all. Have a wonderful
Appreciate
rest
it.
of your day. See you soon.
Bye.